It was millions of years ago when Lucifer tried to stage a rebellion against God and was thus punished by being sent outside heaven. He fell right into hell as well as being chained down by Archangel Michael onto a big boulder, leaving his sword as a seal. Before Michael leaves, Lucifer swears he'll come back someday as an equal to God. Lucifer begins to gather demons around him as the years pass so that he can start planning his revenge, and his followers build a villa around the hole from which he fell as they await his return. The year is now 2022, and art historian Laura is studying in Italy. She wants to write a thesis about how the great Italian artists did not really believe in the angels and demons that they were depicting in their work. But her professor is disapproving because it is a slight against Italy's history. This is only topped off when he offers to discuss the thesis at his apartment, where Laura must make a hasty retreat from the creep. Within a few minutes, Laura meets with Father Marconi, who hands her a special pass that will allow her to see all the exhibitions in his cathedral, including the new display of the Shroud of Turin. This shroud contains Jesus' blood from his crucifixion. The priest takes Laura around the place, and after viewing the shroud, Marconi takes her to see their latest arrival, a beautiful statue of Michael defeating Lucifer. The two discuss the concept of evil for a while, then Marconi leaves Laura so she can work on sketching the statue for her thesis. While drawing, Laura hears someone call her name. She looks around but there's nobody, and she attributes this to her imagination. A few hours later, the exhibition is closing. There's a raven flying in circles around the building and then settling by the entrance as the place transforms into Liz to meet the last people to come and see the exhibition. She goes down a door that's forbidden and, of course, it catches the eye of one of the guards on the security cameras. Liz goes down the corridor of the statues and observes Laura as she draws from afar until she suddenly sees Lucifer's head on the statue moving. Laura becomes concerned once more and checks her surroundings and then gets frightened again by a raven at the window. As Laura is distracted by the bird, Liz sneaks up to the statue and steals Michael's sword. She then leaves the area. A guard finds Laura at that moment, thinking she is the hooded person that got separated from the group, but Laura proves she has access to this area. The guard leaves thinking it was a misunderstanding after reminding Laura they are closing. Laura gathers her belongings and spots Michael's hand but can't make a distinction. Next, she moves to the front door and finds that it is already locked, so she leaves to search for another exit. She gets back to the corridor, only to find that she was left to behold the worst. Liz has beheaded the guard with a sword and has taken his head. Terrified, Laura runs off and hides in a confessional booth, through which she sees Liz disable the alarms using the guard's eyes and smash the glass that covers the shroud with the sword in order to steal the relic. Marconi hears the commotion and comes to apprehend her, but Liz just stabs him. Then Liz's henchmen arrive to help protect the shroud, but on their way out, Liz sees Laura in the booth and orders her men to take her. After the group leaves the room, Marconi uses his last breath to pray and asks Michael to use his body in order to stop Lucifer. Michael immediately descends from heaven and takes over the priest's body to run after Liz's group, who are leaving in their car. His angel powers allow him to run quite fast, but the human flesh can't withstand such power and Michael has to stop to avoid destroying the body. Meanwhile, a group of rich people watches how a prodigy child plays the violin with admirable skill. After the performance, Dr. Laron explains that this kid is a clone of Antonio Vivaldi, which is one more famous name in a long list of clones that his company has been making by taking DNA from their graves. The babies are then auctioned to rich parents, and today's offer is a Michelangelo clone. During the auction, Liz shows up to let Laron know they have the shroud. In a few minutes, they arrive at Lucifer Villa. Laron is overjoyed as the sight of the shroud since he can now clone Jesus. Laura, on the other hand, is chained inside a glass cell with Brenda and two other women. One of them would not stop crying and yelling, but Laura managed to calm her down with some soft words. Laura also thinks they should work together, but before they can plan anything, a bunch of nurses enters the cell to take her vitals. In the meantime, Michael returns to the cathedral and finds other priests reviewing the security tapes. The men are shocked to see Marconi alive, But Michael doesn't give an explanation and asks about the protectors of the shroud. The priests explain that Cardinal Vincini had been in charge of the protection, but he became unstable and started talking about demonic beasts and secret cults, which everyone blamed on dementia. Michael can't believe priests don't believe in what the Bible itself says and demands to know where Vincini is, learning he's now a hermit living alone in an asylum. Then Michael takes the security footage, asks about Laura by showing them her pass, and makes the priests promise that they won't tell anyone that they saw him. Next, Michael borrows a jacket and leaves in Marconi's car, taking some medicine that he finds inside the glove box to handle the pain caused by his powers. During all this, a raven follows him without him noticing. While the villa scientists labor hard at extracting Jesus' DNA from the shroud, Michael arrives at the asylum, armed and scared, and encounters Vincini. However, as soon as Vincini touches Michael, he knows he's more than a priest and instantly believes him when he says he's an angel. Vincini knows about Liz and shows Michael the villa they built around the hole to hell while explaining this asylum was built as a lookout. The scriptures talk about Lucifer returning someday, and for that he needs two ancient beasts who are of both worlds. One is the woman, obviously referring to Liz, and the other is the beast of the ground. For years, the children brought by Lucifer's followers to him have allowed him to possess, but those human bodies were too weak to contain him. This is why they stole the shroud. They are to clone Jesus because that is the only one who can strong enough for Lucifer to take over. Michael is disgusted by what he hears and promises to stop them, so Vincini drives Michael to the foot of the villa mountain. Michael's presence in the area makes his sword react, and now Lucifer can pull at the chain to finally free himself from the seal. In the villa, the women try to find ways to break the chains while gossiping about each other's lives, which tells Laura that she has lost her husband and her child. Laura does some tests and discovers that Laura is 100% compatible, so Liz orders him to speed up the process. Next, the nurses return to the cell to take the girls, but the women use their chains to try to defend themselves. Unfortunately, more nurses arrive and quickly overpower them to then take Brenda and Laura to the surgery room. There, doctors implant eggs fertilized with Jesus' DNA into the girls' uteri, and Liz shows up to introduce herself as an angel of the Lord. She informs Laura that she is the one because she saw her sketches of Lucifer back in the cathedral and they were very inspiring. Meanwhile, Vincini leaves Michael at the entrance of a secret cave that will take him to the villa. As Vincini is leaving, he notices the raven that has been following them and shoots it before handing his weapon to Michael, who enters the cave in this manner immediately. A little while later, Laura and Brenda are attired in wedding dresses and brought to the congregation of Lucifer followers, where they are chained to a pillar. Then the beast of the ground comes to pick up the girls and puts them inside a huge bird cage that is lowered inside the well that protects the hole to hell. Suddenly a bunch of demons appear around the cage and hold the woman down while Lucifer transforms his body into only its essence so he can enter Brenda through her mouth. For a few seconds Brenda fights the devil but eventually can't take it and dies. Then Lucifer leaves her body and enters Laura instead, who survives the possession without any problems. Later Laura walks outside in a daze and Liz presents her as the chosen one before taking her to a new glass cell with a bed and a vital sign monitor. When Laura asks what's inside her, Liz says it's a bed of Jesus. Back to Michael. He finally finds a door in the cave tunnel and shoots it open to enter the villa. The guards immediately notice him, and when Michael fails to use his weapon, he gets shot in the shoulder. He knocks out the guards with a few hits, then he steals a uniform and a pass to go unnoticed. Michael gains access to the lab and retrieves the shroud before looking at the security cameras to get Laura's location. At that moment Laurent enters the lab, but Michael immediately pushes him against the table and demands answers. All Laurent can say is that he is working for a new start. Michael finally decides to open the gas canisters, then light up the flare which would blow the whole lab, and the flames should create a barrier between the arriving guards and himself. In the entire building, the alarm begins ringing out because of fire. Laura asks her nurse to be released, but the guy still doesn't want her to go away from her cell. Suddenly Michael arrives and after he knocks out the nurse, Laura hugs him thinking Marconi is alive after all. However, Michael gets distracted because Lucifer begins to speak to him telepathically, teasing him about his freedom. Michael doesn't understand how his seal was broken and gets furious, making think Laura that he's part of the enemy. Laura runs scared, but Michael catches up with her and pulls her into a room before the guards find her. Laura reacts by taking his gun and holding it to his head, but Michael talks his way into being on her side as he attends to the bullet wound. Then Laura tells him what they did to her, so Michael decides to drag her away with him to protect her. Liz sees them leave and sends her henchmen after them, but she kills one of the guards when he almost shoots Laura because she must come to no harm. Michael and Laura try to escape through the cave tunnel, but the baby is growing too fast and Laura begins to feel unwell. Their slowness allows time for the beast to catch up to them and it begins fighting Michael, who at first offers good combat but soon his human body begins failing again and the beast defeats him. Liz arrives with the henchmen and recaptures Laura, who threatens with hurting the baby if they hurt the priest. However, Liz reminds her the priest is already dead and she just needs to kill the angel too. While Laura is taken back to the cell and tied to the bed, Michael is chained in the room with the well. He uses his powers to destroy the chains and he frees himself, but this leaves him extremely weak. After pulling his body across the ground, he comes to the well and opens it so that he falls into it right before the beast can catch him. Once Michael lands in hell, a demon attacks him. He easily shoves the demon away. He looks at the rock and is astonished to see his sword isn't there. More demons arrive and use Lucifer's sword to imprison Michael the same way he had done to Lucifer years ago. Meanwhile, the baby continues to grow inside Laura at supernatural speed. Liz tells Laura that this baby will replace the one she lost, but she refuses to call them the same. Laura watches the baby on the screen when she is getting an ultrasound scan. She suddenly sees him crawl out to roar at her but wakes up during that moment, thinking it was all just a dream. She finds Liz sitting next to her and asks if Lucifer ever speaks to her. When Laura remains silent, Liz begins telling the story of how Lucifer fought the tyrant they knew as God, and when Laura states that she does not care, Liz slaps her. Liz promises that she will free Laura after she gives birth but shows no mercy at the moment, demanding respect. It is not long after this that a group of kids finds Michael on the rock. It turns out these are the failed sacrifices who have been working together to survive in hell. Michael promises he can take them home if they manage to find his sword, but the kids aren't sure if they can trust angels since Lucifer had been one too. Unfortunately, the demons interrupt the chat, and the kids run away, but a few of them get captured, and Michael can only watch in frustration. Inside the cell, Lucifer's spirit steps out of Laura's womb and in through her ear to accept her offer she can't refuse. If Laura lets him into her life, Lucifer will kill the guy who murdered Laura's family and also Liz, a woman Laura despises. Accepting the deal, Laura lies down on the bed and accepts Lucifer to take over the baby as she dreams of holding the child and bonding with him. Liz watches all this and begins worrying about Laura becoming too strong. Later, while a nurse runs some tests, Laura uses her new powers to put out the light and kill the nurse. Then she exits the room and runs into another nurse, whom she immediately begins beating up and kicking until he dies. Suddenly Laura snaps out of Lucifer's dark hold and is terrified by what she just did, deciding she must kill the baby before it gets worse. This makes Lucifer ask her not to do it while calling her mother. Laura ignores Lucifer's voice and runs into a janitorial closet as guards start chasing her. She locks the door and, fighting against Lucifer's control, drinks a bottle of chlorine. As Laura starts vomiting and squirms in agony, Liz kicks open the door and screams at Laura about what she did to the baby. When Laura is about to leave in search of a doctor, she suddenly unleashes her powers and manages to shut the door on Liz, then pushes her to the ground to puke on her face. It turns out Lucifer has taken over her body and is punishing Liz for her mistakes. Liz wishes she had been able to carry the baby, but Lucifer ignores her pleadings to give her new orders. After the birth, no one can ever know what occurred here, so all of them have to die. He's also concerned by how Laura and the baby are bonding, meaning she too has to die after the birth. Then Laron arrives and Lucifer hits him as he demands to be saved from the chlorine. Moments later, Laura's body is put inside a healing pod. Lucifer's essence temporarily leaves her body and takes over a demon in hell to talk to Michael to make fun of his failure, which is seen by the kids from the shadows as proof Michael is a good guy. After Lucifer leaves, Michael finally realizes why God is letting this happen, and the kids come to his rescue. They are not strong enough to pull the demon sword out of the chains, so they go in search of Michael's own sword. They find it amongst some rubble, but before they can give it to Michael, a whole bunch of demons arrive and offer freedom to the kids too. For a moment the kids hesitate, but then they remember what they heard and they give this sword to Michael, who momentarily gains his old form and kills the demons. After promising the kids he'll come back for them soon, Michael returns to Earth in Marconi's body and retrieves the shroud before going back to the main building. He knocks down a guard and takes a weapon before running to check on Laura. It's Lucifer's voice responding to her. With no other choice, Michael begins pushing the pod into another room, which is witnessed by a nurse. Once he is locked into the room, Michael opens the pod and attempts to explain to Laura that this child is not what she thinks it is. With a powerful roar, Lucifer pushes Michael back. Then Lucifer leads Laura's body to stand above Michael and proclaims her water has broken before releasing the liquid on the angel, burning his body. Michael tries running, but Lucifer holds him on Laura's lap while he asks to be worshipped. When Michael declines, Lucifer thrusts his neck with Laura's fingers but will not accept the situation as he tells them the conclusion he drew. God is permitting this because if Lucifer goes into Jesus' holy body, Jesus will keep him captive under his seal forever. This angers Lucifer and makes him start throwing a tantrum, which knocks Michael unconscious. When Liz arrives with the guards, Lucifer asks her to kill the baby, but Liz assumes it to be Laura speaking again and makes the guards take her to the altar. The highest point of the well into hell is where Laura gives birth to the baby, then Liz takes him instantly down. Laura is left behind in the well, and the beast opens the lid to send her falling before he joins the others outside. Liz introduces their new savior to Lucifer's followers and declares he'll be baptized with blood instead of water, and then the beast kills every follower, doctor, and guard. Laron is shocked but also glad to be spared. However, after he gets to kiss the baby's head, the beast kills him as well. Meanwhile, Michael wakes up and breaks the window with his weapon to escape the room. He enters the well room and finds Laura hanging on the edge, so he helps her up before they go after their enemy together. Liz is just leaving with the baby in a car when Laura leaps on her and knocks her out before getting the child. Liz requests that Lucifer be spared, and Michael says the baby isn't Lucifer. The devil didn't select Laura, God did, and she delivered what will eventually become Lucifer's eternal prison. Laura gets into the car and drives off to find Vincini while Michael stays behind to fight because the gates of hell are now open, and the demons will try to escape. Michael rushes to the well and closes it, only to be found by the beast, who throws him away to start opening the well again. Before the beast could do this, Michael discovers that Liz left a stash of explosives to clean out the evidence, which Michael ignites at present, leading to an explosion which destroys the facility and blankets the hole underneath the debris. After some time has passed, Vincini brings Laura and the baby to the cathedral to return the shroud. In the meanwhile, Michael heads back to hell, fulfilling his word to all of the children. Years pass, and Laura lives with Vincini in the asylum to protect the child, who has grown well and healthy. One day, Liz sneaks into the forest to watch the family and tries to call for Lucifer, but when the devil tries to escape, the child simply absorbs him back into his body to keep him sealed.